Okay, so what camera should you buy for YouTube and content creation and things like that? So one of the main things that's probably going to help you out if you're doing content creation is having good autofocus, because it's kind of nice to be able to just sort of set your camera up and forget about it, in the sense that you could just set it there, leave it there, and hopefully have it reliably track your face for autofocus. Right now I have this camera in manual focus. The autofocus is not great on it, so it's worth noting that it's just keep that in mind. Like when you're looking at a camera and you're just kind of setting it somewhere and you're not actually having a cameraman doing stuff to like move the camera around. If you're like a one-man show and you just want to like film yourself talking about stuff, one thing that you might appreciate is having at least decent autofocus. If you don't, you might learn why that's a pain pretty quickly. Another thing is just a camera with a mic jack. It doesn't have to be crazy. Just having a camera with half decent autofocus and a microphone input might just be a much better, easier time. Because one of the things that I will say, this is not even a might or a maybe, this is something I'm going to say, is just whatever makes it easier. Like if you're just trying to film stuff, you might not want to fuss with the camera a whole lot and gearing in the settings. So the better auto settings it has, probably the better or more fun of a time or easier of a time that you're going to have doing the stuff. Like reduce the amount of friction in the creation or creative process. And so a good way to do that, again, having the good autofocus, having a mic input so you could just plug a mic into the camera. You don't have to worry about syncing up audio later. And if it has good auto exposure settings, that's good too. Like if, say you're outside and like it gets brighter and darker, if your camera can automatically adjust well to those conditions and ideally not be like super bad in low light conditions, then that's good. But the only thing is that the more you get into a camera that has good features for things like this, the more expensive it's going to get. So like the better the autofocus, the better the low light performance especially, probably the more expensive the camera is going to get. You could get a camera that has probably pretty good autofocus and you could probably get that for fairly cheap. But as soon as you want to have one that has good autofocus, good low light performance, you're probably looking at like a newer Canon or Sony or Panasonic, or maybe Nikon. Like again, like it's going to be the newer versions of these cameras that have like phase detect autofocus or whatever the new autofocus system is usually called. Like with Canon, it's like dual pixel autofocus, stuff like that. Now technically they do have dual pixel autofocus on some of their older stuff, but it might not be quite as good. It's probably good enough. I'm just saying probably, I haven't used it. But like if I was to start right now and be like, okay, build something on a budget that you could use and it's just kind of works and it's good, not necessarily fantastic, but it's good. Just getting like a Canon 70D. It's the first DSLR that Canon made, I'm pretty sure, that has the dual pixel autofocus. So hopefully it's just good enough autofocus. Hopefully it's pretty good. And it has a mic jack, as far as I understand, so you could put a microphone input or put a mic on it and it just would work. Canon EF lenses, going to be a variety of lenses at varying price points, so it's keeping it affordable. Then get like a dummy battery that you could just plug into the camera, so you could just plug it into the wall and just run the camera, however long, and then just get like a cheap tripod and you're kind of like good to go. Depending on what lens choice you want, you could change up the price a bit, but that would be probably a reasonable start. It's got a little flippy screen on it too, so you could like see yourself as you're filming yourself, so it helps with like your framing and stuff like that. If you want to frame yourself here or here, you could just see it in the little screen. You don't have to really just do guesswork. So like these kinds of things, like just getting something that makes it simple or simpler, or at least not a terrible experience, is a good idea. If you don't have as much of a budget constraint, you could look at like some newer full frame Sony or Canon cameras. You could look at some newer Panasonic cameras. If budget's kind of a concern, you could look at some of the newer APS-C cameras. You don't have to go super high end. Like you don't have to go for like a Sony FX30, which is like their cinema mirrorless APS-C camera, as far as I understand. You could instead go for something like an R50V, that's a Canon camera, or you could go for like a Sony ZV-E10. Again, once you're getting into like the ZV-E10, this is more like the budget APS-C, but it's budget new APS-C, so it's going to have probably more better performance features than an older APS-C camera might have. The direct comparison between like an older high-end APS-C mirrorless camera and a newer lower-end APS-C camera, you might start to have to look at more of the details there and kind of figure out maybe what's the better option. This is where you could kind of do some looking around, watching different reviews, things like that. Budget's your main factor here. If budget doesn't matter, things get a lot easier for your choices, because then you don't necessarily have to make as many, exceptions or whatever. But if budget is a factor, then you're going to maybe have to deal with some of those hurdles. But anyway, when you think in content creation, especially solo content creation, just think about stuff that will make it easier and not a pain to do. That's probably one of the main things. So like maybe don't get... Like say budget didn't matter, maybe don't get a cinema camera. Because with cinema cameras, at least a portion of them, they're probably not going to have as many of the friendly auto features. If you did want to get a cinema camera, this is an older one and it's not even that high end, but it has a flippy screen and it has autofocus to a degree. The level to which the autofocus performs for different things depends on the lens choice, but like if you got like a Canon C100 Mark II, that technically does have eye detect autofocus if you use Canon STM lenses. I'm pretty sure, but even then this might be kind of like older quality autofocus, and the camera doesn't have the same features and abilities that newer, more high-end cinema cameras do. So again, like, does even having a cinema camera matter to you? If you're just doing YouTube and content creation, you don't have to go insane, you don't have to go crazy, just something that looks half decent. Honestly, if it just looks a little bit better than an iPhone, you might be good. And even then, you could use your iPhone. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You know what I mean? Like, start where you're at, because you might not even like this. So don't spend a whole bunch of money right away just getting something cheap just to figure out if you like doing this sort of thing, But anyway, I'll leave that there. If you have questions about cameras, feel free to join my Skool Community. Link in description. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.